Hi, this is Kathy with Barefoot Mountain School of Herbs, and in this video we are going to discuss horsetail. We'll go over the medicinal uses for horsetail, how to identify it and harvest it, process it, and make it into herbal medicine. The information presented in this video is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant to give any medical advice, diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. Please do your own research and prayerfully make your own decisions regarding your use of herbal medicines. Okay, and the first thing that we're going to talk about are the medicinal uses of horsetail. Now, horsetail, or Equisetum arvense, is the plant that contains the highest amount of natural silica than any other known plant in the world. So with all of that natural silica, horsetail is known as the beauty herb because, of course, silica is great for beautiful skin and hair and nails and that sort of thing. But silica is great for a whole lot of other things besides that. Now, silica is the precursor to collagen. And of course, we need collagen for bone and joint health and for wound healing, for new skin cells to form. And I was reading a study and I got really excited about some of the things that horsetail can do with osteoporosis. So I wanted to show you all real quick this study by Rasha Arafa, Equisetum arvense horsetail, the potential effects of natural herb on osteoporosis. And they did a study on rats and osteoporosis, and they found that different levels of horsetail, with the highest level, of course, being the best, improved calcium and phosphorus on the bone mineral density, bone mineral concentration, but it also improved kidney function, liver enzymes, glucose, and thyroid hormones. So I was particularly excited about that because I'm always looking for something to regulate my thyroid besides Synthroid, which I went off of years ago. So apparently thyroid has something to do with osteoporosis. So I just thought this was really interesting. Let me go back up and show you the title of it so that you can look it up yourself if you want to. Look at that for just a second. Okay, which brings us to the next known benefit of horsetail, which is that it's very nourishing for the kidneys. It's known to be diuretic, and it has been used in support of passing kidney stones. It was compared in studies to the diuretic hydrochlorothiazide, and they found that it worked just as well. We'll look at that study in just a second. And it was also found in that same study and in another study to be hypotensive. So it was really good. I think it said especially for systolic blood pressure, but the diastolic as well. Okay, and this first study that I want to look at was done in March of 2014. Randomized double-blind clinical trial to assess the acute diuretic effect of Equisetum arvense, or field horsetail, in healthy volunteers. And in this one, they compared horsetail to hydrochlorothiazide, or HCTZ, and they found out that the horsetail was equivalent, the diuretic effect was equivalent to HCTZ without causing significant changes in elimination of electrolytes. So you wouldn't have to worry about the potassium level like you would with something like Lasix. And then, of course, I always look and see what how they prepared the horsetail, and in this one it was just a dry extract of the aerial parts of horsetail. And they did note down here that the systolic blood pressure was significantly reduced after treatment compared to pre-treatment levels. And their conclusions down here was that horsetail produced a diuretic effect comparable to HCTZ and superior to that of a placebo, of course. And it did not cause problems with electrolytes And of course, they say further studies are needed. Okay, and then this second study I wanted to point out was done in May of 2022. So it was just out, just released. Antihypertensive effect of Equisetum arvense, horsetail, a double-blind, randomized efficacy and safety clinical trial. And of course, what they were doing was testing people with high blood pressure to see if the horsetail, if there was any difference between HCTZ and horsetail. And they used the dried herb, and the results were that Equisetum arvense or horsetail treatment demonstrated a significant antihypertensive effect, promoting a mean decrease of systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure by 12.6 and 8.1 millimeters of mercury, respectively. So that is a pretty good decrease. And then it says that there was no significant difference between horsetail and HCTZ on blood pressure decrease. And no signs of acute toxicity, renal, hepatic, or hematological blood alterations. And then their conclusions were that a standardized dry extract of horsetail was successfully applied to the hypertension stage 1 patient treatment, and decreased effectively the systolic and diastolic blood pressure values to reference normal ranges, and demonstrated well tolerability similar to HCTZ. So I don't know, I'm a little bit curious. I know that the dried horsetail is probably the least powerful in terms of herbal medicine. I believe that the fresh, I think in this case, is supposed to be better, but so I don't know. We'll see. But this is a great study on blood pressure. Okay, we also know through studies that horsetail is also very anti-inflammatory and in some cases immunomodulating. So we'll look at a study on that. Okay, this first study on the anti-inflammatory characteristics was done in 2014, August 4th. Equisetum arvense, or common horsetail, modulates the function of inflammatory immunocompetent cells. And they used, it just says, a standardized extract of horsetail. So it doesn't tell us if it was, an alcohol extract or water. It doesn't tell us. So anyway, the conclusion is the data indicates that the used extract of horsetail interferes with the polyfunctionality of immunocompetent cells, thereby providing an anti-inflammatory mode of action. So, and I've seen this in my own, giving this to people with rheumatoid arthritis and that sort of thing. Okay, on further down, it's telling us, and they used 1 part of the dried plant material with 9 parts of ethanol. So they used a 1 to 9 or 1 to 10. No, 1 to 9. And it was 36% by volume. So I don't know. We don't have the labs to be able to do that, but it doesn't sound like a very strong extract compared to what we do. Okay, but anyway, down here in the conclusion, they do conclude that they have pretty much proven its traditional use in the treatment of inflammatory disorders. Okay, and what is interesting about this study, and this is from May of 2018, In vitro anti-inflammatory effects of Equisetum arvense are not solely mediated by silica. So people tends to think that the silica is the only active constituent in horsetail, and it's not. And they prove that in this study. But they're saying that it's used for treatment of inflammatory diseases and because it has the highest concentration of silica. But they have found here, there is another, let's see if I can find it. Isoquercetin. I don't know if I'm saying that, probably not saying that right, but is another compound of horsetail that helps with the anti-inflammatory effect. And then last but certainly not least is its antioxidant effect, and it's used in cancer support. Okay, in this last study that we're going to look at, it's basically just an abstract on PubMed, but it was done in April of 2010, and it says antioxidant and anti-proliferative activities of different horsetail extracts. And in this, they investigated the activity of several different extracts. And they used sunflower oil, soybean. They used several different kinds, and they found the butanol, methanol, which is the rubbing alcohol, ethyl acetate, and water extracts had significant radical scavenging activity. They inhibited cell growth that was dependent on cell line. And the ethyl acetate, or the alcohol extract, exhibited the most prominent anti-proliferative effect without inducing any cell growth stimulation on human tumor cell lines. It suggests that horsetail extracts could be used as an easily accessible source of natural antioxidants and as potential phytochemicals. So they were studying this against human tumor cell lines. And it looks like several of the extracts, the water and several others, stopped cell growth and also were good antioxidants. So that was just interesting. So now we're going to move along and learn to identify and harvest horsetail. Horsetail is invasive, and it's a perennial, and it grows in wet areas. So you want to look down next to creeks and creek banks and that sort of thing. It emerges in early spring. Now, in very early spring, you will have a stalk that comes up that is reproductive, and it doesn't have any leaves on it or anything like that. It does have the segmented stalk, and it has a little like a little cone on top, and that is how it reproduces. And then that completely goes away, and then another sterile stalk emerges, and that's what we see here. This is what we use for the herbal medicine. Now we're going to use the above ground parts, and they are harvested when they're still young. You want the leaves to still be pointing upwards. I like to say when they're still raising their hands to God, that's when you want to harvest these. And when they get older and these leaves start pointing outwards or downwards, the silica is just too hardened in the plant to extract it. So you want to get these fresh ones while the leaves are pointing upwards. One way you can identify them is that the leaves are scratchy to the touch. They used to call this plant scour brush because they used to use it to, to wash their dishes and that sort of thing. So it's very rough to the touch. And you can see here that the stem is segmented, and you want to get as much of that stem as possible when you harvest it, because that is the area in those segments, that's the area where they have the greatest concentration of silica. So be sure that you get the full stem when you harvest it. And now we're going to go over making some herbal medicine from horsetail. And this is my horsetail harvest that I brought home today. And the first thing, like always, is that you want to cut it into tiny little pieces. I just did this with scissors, and I actually cut it a little more after I took this picture, but you want to get it just as tiny as you can get it. Okay, so first we're going to go over how to make a horsetail tincture. And of course, if you don't know how to make tinctures, there is a video on that. So just go back and watch that for the specifics on how to make a professional and actually a folk tincture. But for a professional tincture of horsetail, you want to do about a 1-to-4 ratio. You can do a 1-to-3 if you want it a little bit stronger, but I don't like it because it doesn't cover the whole herb. It's a little bit fluffy, so I did mine in a 1-to-4 in 50% pure grain alcohol. So you're going to use half Everclear and half water, or you can just do a folk tincture. You can add your just add vodka to it, or you can use half Everclear, half spring water. You just want to put your herb in a jar and cover it by about 1/4 of an inch of liquid. Then you want to add a teaspoon or a tablespoon of sugar. And the reason is that the sugar pulls out the silica. So any preparation of horsetail that you use, you want to be sure to use sugar or honey because that will pull out the silica. And of course, as you've seen, the silica is a very important part of the medicinal constituents. So you want to shake it well and let it sit for 6 weeks and shake it every day that you remember it. Then you press it out very well. Make sure you get all the liquid from around the herb because that's the strongest medicine. And then strain it through a coffee filter. It'll keep up to 7 years. And then you want to take a dropper full 1 to 3 times daily for immunomodulation, allergies, blood pressure, kidney health, wound healing, all those things that we went over. Okay, so the next thing that I made was a horsetail infused oil. Remember, the horsetail is the beauty herb, so and it's also very good for the skin, and it's good topically too. And of course, that silica is great for healing, and it's great for like skin protecting. So I always like to make an infused oil. Of course, the first thing you want to do is place your chopped up horsetail in a jar. Add an oil of choice until the herb is covered by 1/4 inch. I like to use olive oil because it's good for the skin and it's also easily accessible. But you could use any oil that you wanted. You could use, coconut oil if you wanted a non-greasy kind. You could use sunflower oil or grapeseed, just whatever you wanted to use. If you are not sure how to make an infused oil, be sure that you have watched the video on it because it gives you some instruction how to get the sediment and water out of it too. And then you want to add about a teaspoon of honey. And honey is also very good for the skin. It's very good in a salve or that sort of thing. But it also is going to pull that silica out of the horsetail. You want to put it in a warm area for about 2 weeks. You want to shake it every day. Then you press out the herb and remove the sediment and excess water. That's where watching the video comes in. You want to make sure that you know how to properly make an infused oil. It will keep up to a year in the refrigerator. Actually, it might probably keep longer than that. I've kept them for a year out of the refrigerator. And honey is a sort of a preservative. So. And then, you want to use it in lip balms or wherever you need skin protection and nourishment. You might put it in body butters or lotions or just salves, whatever you want to use it in. And this one is actually my favorite. I love horsetail syrup. It tastes good. It works well. I love that you use it fresh. I usually make a good big bunch of this every year. Of course, the first thing you want to do is make a sugar syrup. I use a 1/4 cup of spring water to every cup of organic sugar, and you want to let it cool to room temperature. Now, I read somewhere that if you expose horsetail to heat, that it sets the silica in the plant and you can't get it out, but I don't know. I've not read any studies on that, but I always make sure that I let my sugar syrup cool to room temperature. Or if you want to, you can choose to use honey or raw honey. That will probably be better for you. I like the taste of the syrup, the sugar syrup, so I use it that way. And also, if we have any babies, that we would give it to, we would not want to use honey for that. Um, then you place the chopped up horsetail in a jar and just pour your sugar syrup or honey over your herb until it's covered by 1 to 2 inches. And then you want to let it sit out at room temperature for a couple weeks, and you want to shake it every day. And then when you're done with the 2 weeks, you strain out the herb and refrigerate it, and it will keep up to 6 months. Now, when we first started doing this, we left it out of the refrigerator, and it turned into a some kind of a brew that tasted really good. And I'm sure that fermentation was probably very healthy, but I don't know. If you know more about fermentation, you might want to experiment with that. But I refrigerate mine to keep it from turning into alcohol. And then you take a teaspoon daily as a tonic for immunomodulation, anti-inflammatory things, kidney tonic, bone, skin, hair, nail health, blood pressure, whatever you want to use it for. And it works very well fresh like this. This one is my favorite preparation. Okay, and here is my horsetail harvest. I have about a quart of horsetail syrup. I have a pint of horsetail tincture almost, and about 8 ounces of oil. So it'll probably end up, because once it's all strained out, probably end up about 6 ounces. But that's my harvest for the day. And that is the end of the video on horsetail. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just put them in the comment section. Please be sure to like and share and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and God bless you.